welcome to the Memoir channel. My name is Nikki Smart, and today I'm going to be speaking with Jane Little Botkin about her memoir, The Pink Dress, a memoir of a reluctant beauty queen. So Jane is an award-winning author. She specializes in American Western historical nonfiction and women's studies. The Pink Dress is about her time competing in beauty pageants, specifically under the sort of tutelage of Guyrex. Now, because I didn't grow up in America, I'd actually never heard of these two. So I found her book really interesting because it's sort of stepping into a world that I knew nothing about. Anyway, I have a lot of questions for Jane, so let's go speak to her and find out a little bit more. Hi, Jane. Welcome to the Memoir channel.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
So would you maybe just give sort of a brief overview of what your book is about, just for people that haven't read it? Well, no one's read it because it hasn't actually come out yet, has it? Okay.
Nope, just the ARC readers. It is a book, really it's about the nexus of Richard Guy and Rex Holt, who were the beauty queen. They became known as the beauty queen pageant kings because of their ability to create the Guyrex girl. And I was the first Guyrex girl. And that was the story I started out to tell. And what happened was I realized there was more of a personal story that was involved with it. So this memoir came about, something I never do because I write normally Western biography, scholarly nonfiction, but COVID happened. So I wrote this book and it kind of just expanded. And I had all the material. I had friends who knew my background, but to go back and tell this story, I had to look at it from a historian's point of view now. Now I'm the central character, but I'm looking at the time the story happened, which was set during the 1970s, during the American counterculture era. And of course, it's, for feminists, this is when women's lib was in full swing. And beauty pageants were being questioned, all that sort of thing. And I thought, okay, I'm going to go ahead and tell the story from that historical perspective. But then, of course, my mother had to come into it, and she was not a stage mother. So this is not a typical mommy dearest book. That's not what this is. And so that's what the book is about. And it actually ends in 2018. It is a Texas story. However, Guyrex is what they were called. I ended up producing, as a result of their get-go with me, learning on me, ended up producing 6 Miss USAs out of Texas, 5 of them consecutively. And what is remarkable is they brought the West to the world. So when these girls, who were originally Miss Texases, went to compete in Miss USA, they took a pair of Tony Lama boots with them. They showed up in their, gaucho looking, vests and bolos and boots. And then when they went to the Miss Universe pageant as Miss USA, the same thing. So someone said, really, we just cowboyed up the United States on the world stage. Everybody always said we were just a bunch of cowboys anyway, right? So we sent these girls and they were cowgirls. And Guy and Rex put the West Texas city of El Paso on the map because this is where it all began. Then they put the United States on the map. And my story was the first one in it.
Yeah.
And I was always trying to escape. So that's why it's called A Memoir of a Reluctant Beauty Queen.
Right. Yes, I mean, I picked that up when I was reading it. You were more interested in your, academics, and you wanted to make sure.
I was.
Right. What would you say was like the worst thing for you at the time? What was the most difficult thing to contend with?
One of the things, there were 2 things actually. One, what was going on at home. I had a cheating father and a mother who was trying to hang on to him. And I was my father's little girl. So you had all those dynamics going on at home. And my mother wanted to be controlling of me simply because she wanted to know exactly what I was doing. I'm not sure why. But at the same time, she wanted me out of the house. And they handed me over to Richard Guy and Rex Holt, who were gay. And at this time, you did not openly discuss partnerships like this. But that's what they handed me over, which was totally opposite of what my father would have done, except he was trying to escape too, I think. And then the other thing was Guy and Rex, this was when Twiggy was popular, right? So they got me and they said, well, no, she's fat. I wasn't, but they said I was. And they put me on a 900 calorie diet for 6 weeks, which was basically nothing.
Right.
And I lost 9 inches, 3 inches, bust, waist, and hip. And so that was very, very difficult.
Right.
Was the remaking, and that's when I started trying to escape. And the reason I went ahead and entered this pageant, it was on a whim with my sorority sisters, was because it was for the Miss America pageant, and you won scholarships. It helped pay for your college, and it wasn't like my parents had lots of money, and so that's why I went ahead and did it.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I think you're quite brave because it sounds like it was actually really terrifying. I
it
mean,
was.
especially the part where you were playing the piano and they're like, well, you have to memorize it, you have to be a note perfect. And I see there's a
Oh,
piano right
yes.
behind you. So,
Exactly. And I was an introvert. My girlfriends will say, "Oh no, you were an extrovert." And some of the friends who remember things that I shut out because they were just painful. I have friends from fourth grade who remembered all of this, a lot of these things. They'll say, "Oh, she's an extrovert." But I was an introvert then. I really
yeah,
was. And I was terrified of being in front of people. But I got over that. I mean, that you get over this once you've gone through a year like this. And really, it wasn't just 1 year. My association ends with them in 1980.
right. And I mean,
Yeah,
you went
so
on to not only were you a contestant, but then later on they called you back and you were a judge.
I was a judge. Yes, I
So,
judged some of their pageants, and there is a couple of incidents where you get your West Texas or your Texas do-over. They had their do-over in getting this Miss Texas USA pageant after there was a cheat for Miss Texas, Miss America that's brought out, and they buy this pageant, this other one that's floundering, which is the Miss Universe for Miss Texas, and that's what starts everything. Just 4 years after my year.
mhm.
They get their do-over. I try to do my escapes, which flounder, and then I get my do-over. And so that's one of the themes that's in the book is, you have a chance to start
Uh-huh.
again.
Uh-huh. Now, I wanted to know, was it more fun being a contestant or a judge?
Oh, well, I was terrified when I was a contestant. If
Right.
I had gone back, they wanted me to go again, and Miss Texas people had asked me to come back again, but I did not want to do it. When I was a judge, that was fun.
Ah,
I mean, I really had a lot of fun. And there was
yeah.
one particular contest where the lights went out in El Paso. And ironically, the girl that we selected, she was African American. She was gorgeous.
Yes.
But we had a blackout. And so the newspapers say blackout, black in. It was so much fun. And she was great. She's a friend of
Right.
mine
Is,
today.
is this the
She's
one where
gorgeous.
is the one that you said she's already perfect,
She
and
was already perfect.
they said you don't have to do anything, and they didn't actually like that because they liked someone that
No.
they could sort of make
They want to
over.
redo. And
Right.
Fran was perfect. The only problem with her name was Fran Ford. The only
Right.
problem with Fran was she was 17 years old. And they had already said after me, I was an 18-year-old, and they'd already said, "Oh, we don't want these little college girls. They don't know anything yet, you know." And
Yeah.
but Fran gave them a great year, and she ended up working for them as a marketer and helped them produce some of these pageants.
Yeah.
So
Well done. Well done. Yeah, and I like the whole, but listen, it sounded like your schedule was kind of crazy when you actually, the first year when you were in it, now you have all these obligations as Miss El Paso to
mhm.
do all kinds of appearances. And I mean, was that really strenuous? What was that like?
It was those things in El Paso I enjoyed.
Uh-huh.
I enjoyed going to a lot of them. And I don't know if you recall going over for Lee Trevino Day, going over to Juarez, Mexico, and going to the governor's palace and all that. I'm a historian at heart.
Hmm.
And and again, when I wrote the book, I looked at it from this historian's point of view, and I was just a character in it. But I loved that. I loved going into that governor's palace, and I loved looking at the bullet holes in the walls from when Pancho Villa was there, the Mexican Revolution. Met a lot of great people. And some of them I've communicated today, even children of some of the people that are gone. And when I look back on it today, I wish now I'd been more mature. And I probably at the moment would have appreciated Guyrex more, but I
Yeah.
was always fighting them. I was always in a battle with them.
Yeah, but I mean, hindsight, we all have that,
Yeah,
right?
we always do that.
But was the camaraderie pretty good then between the contestants with the girls on stage and
I never, none of those things ever happened that you heard the horror stories of. Someone's going to step on the back of your dress and tear it so you can't compete in evening gown. I did show up in Fort Worth at the Miss Texas pageant with 5 designer gowns. Most girls showed up with one dress they paid $50 for in a swimsuit. And these girls were in my closet immediately as these vans kept unloading all my stuff. But that's the Guyrex effect. I mean, when they hit Fort Worth, it was something. And it put El Paso on the map. And it was just 6 weeks later, after the Texas pageant, they're already making arrangements to send Miss America and Miss Texas to Guy and Rex to have their evening gowns designed.
Yeah, it's pretty. I mean, it's pretty amazing actually that it's 2 men that get all the women to like shine.
Oh,
Like,
they do, and they were great at, and they did change. They morphed as our views of what women should look like changed. I mean, you toward the end, Rex is saying, yeah, she can go braless if she wants to, depending on her body. But in the, it doesn't. It's just symmetry
well,
instead of being. You
right.
have to be 19-inch waist, So
I didn't think of that, but I guess in the beginning it was quite conservative still.
it was based off the movies. If you think about all the movies from 1960s and 70s, they had these tiny little waists. They had these bras or Merry Widows that made their boobs stick out. I said like missile tips because I was from El Paso where we had missiles. But that's the way they looked. And that's what Guy and Rex were into, the movie aspect, the theater aspect.
Right.
So that's how they tried to make me. And by the time we get into the late 80s, you now see queens that are wearing sheaths. You don't have to have a small waist that's tucked in. So they changed with the times. They were very cognizant of what was going on with fashion.
So would you maybe read us a little piece from your book?
Yes.
I'd love that.
Now, there is a lot of, I've had one person say, this is really a dark book. It is and it isn't. There's some dark parts to it, and there are parts in it that is comic.
Yeah.
And I'm not a comedian by heart, but I'm going to read the comic part because this is the part everybody loves. Let me set it up. Because they had me on that diet, and my dresses were made with 19-inch waists.
Yeah.
My waist was now 21.5 inches. They had to squeeze me in the dress and zip me up. And so they warned me for days, don't eat anything. You cannot eat. Every evening we would have rehearsal. And when we'd come back from rehearsal at the Miss Texas pageant, the tables would be laden with food. And Guy and Rex would be staring at me. You do not touch it. But they couldn't talk to me because that's one of the rules for the Miss Texas pageant. So that was great. So my roommates soon realized I can't eat food. And so we've come in from a rehearsal, and this is right after rehearsal. Okay.
Perfect. All right.
When we all walked through Shirley Hall's lobby afterward, we were utterly exhausted. Again, local restaurants had provided a smorgasbord of carb-rich food for us. Catching my eye was a huge cake in the shape of Texas, filling half of one banquet table. Our geographical areas and representative cities clearly marked on its frosting. The cake, a gift from a contestant, was to be our treat the next day to celebrate the Miss Texas pageant's opening night. Ironically, the Miss Texas board had a new rule that none of the girls could gain more than 5 pounds over the weight the board set for a girl's particular body type. How would they even know? What was my body type? Anorexic? Back in our rooms, girls washed and set their hair while others pressed dresses for upcoming judges' interviews. Some stayed up and talked. The next day was my interview too, as well as my evening gown competition. I should have been reviewing all my El Paso facts for the judges, but instead I'd gone to find the piano. I was having a lot of trouble with the piano. It didn't work. And again, it did not work. So at 2 a.m., lights were out and our alarm clocks were set for 5 a.m. I lay in bed, awake, with my stomach in a tight ball. It had seemed that the more our room filled up with flowers, the emptier my belly became. My roommates whispered about the cake downstairs. I don't recall who made the initial suggestion. I'm certain my frustration about the piano and diet contributed to our shameful plan. The 4 of us got out of bed and silently tiptoed through the hallway and down the stairs, quiet as pantry mice. Except for muted emergency lights leading toward the front exit, the foyer was dim. The Texas cake beckoned us in the darkness. Someone found forks from the other food-laden tables, and we carefully unwrapped the huge cake, trying not to smear the frosted lettering. We didn't bother to cut up pieces, but we gouged our forks into the geographical areas we each represented. I am not ashamed to say I devoured all of West Texas, the true West Texas. And still not satisfied, I announced that since the other girls were primarily from North and South Texas, I claimed the Texas Panhandle as well. After all, I had been born there in the town without a toothache. I savored the sugary frosting, gorging on cake from Dalhart south to Big Spring, the Muleshoe east to Childress, and only then was I satiated. The next morning, Wednesday, July 7th, the last syllable of a typically monosyllabic word soared upstairs to our ears. We could hear a girl downstairs screaming in her East Texas accent, "My cake, my cake!" And coincidentally, East Texas crumbs were all that remained on the banquet table. That was bold and brave, and we were so proud of ourselves. And I got into my dress that night. That 19-inch waist is zipped up.
Yeah. No, I mean, I read that they even put you on these diet pills, like you were saying, this like amphetamine stuff.
Uppers. Yeah, it was. It was basically uppers, and then it's not regulated. It was just they were uppers.
Yeah. It's a little bit like speed, isn't it?
Yes, it was.
Yeah. And then I was also I liked the part where you met your husband. I mean, it was Gary, right?
Yes, Gary.
Because it was such a sort of romantic meeting.
It was, and it was, again, some of these things, it's like it's not fate, or if it's God, or it's what these things just fell into place. And on that one, I'd had a rough background, and he had followed me. He had gone to Texas Tech. I went to the University of Texas in El Paso. And I don't want to give away to readers the bad thing that had happened before then, but I definitely did not want to have anything to do with any guys. And he had followed us all the way up in a car with a bunch of other boys. They parked next to us, and I stayed in the car, and he ate some of my fried chicken that my friends offered. Didn't see him. And the next 1 month later, I'm out of control on a ski mountain because I've only had 1 day's ski lessons the month before. And I skied downhill, and it was comedic also dangerous. And I saw a tree that I could grab a branch, and I skied into that tree and went down, and I looked up, and there he was with his hand down, reaching to ask to help me up. And that was it. I mean, that was how I met him.
I mean, and that's like a film. It's like the movie scene, the big love moment.
Yeah.
It's really fantastic. All right. And then I was also going to ask you, now with all your hindsight and everything, and knowing, if you could go back in time, is there anything you would change? Is there something you would do differently?
Yeah, I would have gone ahead and gone back to the Texas pageant again.
Yeah.
They wanted me to go back as Miss Sun City. I probably, now knowing what I'm capable of, I would have done it. I was so worried about my school. Academics were so important to me, but I'd already ruined it. I was already bust. My GPA had already gone like this. I think I probably would have gone ahead and done it. And again, because we know there was some sort of cheat that was going on, I'm not sure what difference it would have made, but I would not have had happen what happened to me in the first pageant. And I said, that's why I don't want to give that away, but I might have done that. I might have looked at Guyrex differently.
Yeah. And I don't know if you have a daughter or not, but I was going to say, if you have a daughter, would you want her to be in pageants? No,
not now. No. And I don't know if you finished the book or not, but there is a scene with my granddaughter. Yes. I have one granddaughter. And one of the lines in the very end is knowing that she will never be judged by the sum of her measurements. And I think that is freeing for women. There is an exhilaration of knowing that you are not going to be judged that way.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that is I felt for you, and you were saying, you get up there and you have to do the swimsuit, and then you're in these glaring lights, and you have to stand with your back to the audience so they can all check out your rear. I'm like, yeah, that's
yeah. And I swear the only reason I did as well at the Miss El Paso pageant is because I turned the wrong way. They said, turn right, turn left, turn whatever. And they said, turn right. And I turned left. And I was looking at a girl that was like 6 inches taller than me. And I'm looking at her throat. And I remember the audience just laughed. They thought it was hysterical. And I was just flushing. I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did this. But I was a rookie. And the thing about these pageants is it's a business, and it's a business today. There's lots of money, hundreds of thousands of dollars involved today, and at the time of probably 100,000. So you make it, you're going to make money. You're going to make a lot of money.
Do you have to
And
pay? Do you have to pay to enter?
no,
No,
you do not
okay.
pay to enter. But if you win, not aside like for the Miss America pageant, of course you get all the scholarship stuff. Miss USA, no, but it doesn't matter. It's like a professional, it's like a college athlete. It's going to be all those endorsements you get, that they're getting now and that you get when you're a pro player.
Yeah.
That is different. So what happens is these girls are professional contestants. So if they don't win one year, they come back the next year. You just come under a different franchise. So with me, Miss El Paso, then Guy and Rex said, well, they said, we'll get another franchise for Miss Sun City, which is another nickname for El Paso. So you can keep coming back all these other franchises until you hit winning. And typically it takes 3 times before you win. Phyllis George, who was Miss America in 1971 and who went on to be very successful, I think she was in it 3 times, maybe twice, but before she hit it. But that's just the way it is. You have to learn the ropes.
Right, because you don't, I guess the first time you're a little just sort of
you don't have a
deer
clue.
in the headlights. Yeah.
Yes.
Freeze up. Okay, so when is your book coming out?
It comes out on September 10th.
September 10th.
It is coming soon.
And then are you doing a book launch?
I am doing a book launch. I'm on book tour. I've got so many events that are lined up, podcasts that are lined up. I'm going to do the launch from Dripping Springs, Texas, because that's where I spent the previous 30 years. I'm going to be all over Texas, including El Paso, San Antonio, all these other places in Central Texas. Next spring, I'll go back into Northeast Texas and Houston area. I'm going to be in New Mexico, several places, and we're just going from there. I'll be presenting the book in Colorado to a group of people, women, in October, the same women where I began the whole idea. So I'll be presenting the book with them, sharing it with them at least.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah. So it's going to be a busy year.
Okay, so now is this all on your website? Can people, if I put your website on here, everyone can see where you're going to be and where your events are? All right,
it's
fantastic.
JaneLittleBotkin.com.
Okay.
And
when you were competing, were you just Jane Little?
I was Janie Little.
I like that.
Growing up, I was plain Jane Little.
Oh, well, they
went with Jane. Thank you. They went with Jane. It was Janie. I'm Janie. That's what I'm called. And I added the little when I published my first book, because it had to do with a true life person named Frank Little, who was real essential to American history. So I made sure the little was stuck in there. And I think there's another Jane Botkin who might be a children's author. So that's another reason I did that.
Okay. Well, I wish you the very best of luck with everything.
Thank you, Nikki.
And I'll put all the information here.
Okay.
And I want to ask you, what you're going to be writing next, but I feel like you haven't even released this one, so maybe we leave that question alone.
I'm in the middle of another book that's going to be
coming out. You are?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm writing the biography of Mary Ann Goodnight, Molly Goodnight. She was famous cattleman Charles Goodnight's wife, but she is the one who's responsible for saving the southern bison herd from extermination. And she's a Texas story. PBS just did a series on the American bison. She's mentioned in there for her role. But her husband has always taken all the credit and all the glory, but it's her story.
That's annoying.
So I'm writing a biography. It'll go through a university press. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I know that's sort of one of your specialities is Western women, right? And the history of that, having been one yourself. And I think it's quite nice, you're writing your memoir and you said you're researching it and you're sort of the central figure in making this part of history unfold. That's what happens when
you get my age. You look back and you're, oh, damn, Sam. I mean, I was way back there, and this is what was going on. But
I mean, you were actually part of it. You like you said, you were sort of the first one, and they were experimenting and learning along the way with you. So
and Vietnam was going on. We had all the different rallies on campuses. We had the bomb scares. All of this is going on. And yet I realize now I was oblivious to all of
I was just going to ask, were you aware?
Campus.
Yeah.
We'd have a bomb scare on campus and we just go, another bomb scare, whatever, but that was going all across the country, and now you go back and look at it in history books and it was quite a turbulent time.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no, I think that's very common too, because I know when I was growing up, I was so focused on just my little world. I didn't even notice and then when I looked back later, I went, how come I wasn't aware of what was going? Yeah.
We just insulate ourselves,
Yeah,
we're
I think when you're
not
young,
equipped to deal with it.
when you're young, it's just like, it's me. I have, yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
anyway, all right. Well, thank you very much. And I
Thank
wish you the
you.
best of luck with this book and then your next book. And maybe we
Thank
can
you.
come back and talk about that one at some point in time.
Okay. That'd be great. I
All
appreciate
right.
it.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. All right. Bye-bye.